Multipass, Lightning Lane, Genie Plus, Fast Pass, VIP Tours, Premier Pass. You've probably heard all the different names for line skipping at Walt Disney World. If you're confused, don't be. In this episode, we're going to talk very quickly about the basics of Lightning Lane Multipass, how to use it, and I'm going to give you 7 of my favorite tips for using Lightning Lane Multipass at Walt Disney World so that you can make the most of your Walt Disney World vacation. Welcome back to Adventures of a Disney Dad. If you're new here, my name's Matt. I'm a travel agent with the Magic for Less Travel. My co-host on the podcast is normally Chip. He's moving, so I'm going to do a solo episode this week, and I'm going to talk about 7 of my favorite tips for Lightning Lane Multipass. I book Lightning Lane Multipass almost every single day, it feels like, for clients that are headed down to Walt Disney World. If you're interested in having me book your Lightning Lanes for you, all of my services are free. You can get a quote in the show notes or in the video description, and I will be happy to help you plan your next Walt Disney World vacation. If you're headed down to Walt Disney World in 2025 or beyond, you've probably heard a lot about Multipass. It has replaced Genie Plus, which previously replaced Fast Pass. It is the line skipping service at Walt Disney World that costs you money. So you have to pay per person to get Multipass, and then there's also individual Lightning Lanes. There's Premier Pass. We'll walk through the basics a little bit, but this is going to be more of a 7-tip episode. So I'm going to have a different video walking you through all of the details of how to use Lightning Lane Multipass on your phone and all that kind of fun stuff. But that's not going to be for today. Today, I'm going to give you 7 of my favorite tips when using Lightning Lane Multipass, but we'll go over the basics a little bit here at the beginning. Lightning Lane Multipass has a per person cost at each individual park that changes per day. That's a lot, right? So at Magic Kingdom, it's going to be the most expensive. Hollywood Studios is usually second. Epcot is third. And Animal Kingdom is usually fourth. People always ask me, is Lightning Lane Multipass worth it? Yes is always the answer that I give, because you're basically paying to get some of your time back on your vacation to avoid waiting in line. But also, people will ask, hey, is it worth it at Epcot? Is it worth it at Animal Kingdom? The answer is still yes. And the reason for that is you pay less at those parks because there are less attractions that you can use it for, less long lines in comparison to somewhere like Magic Kingdom where there are a lot more attractions. So it's absolutely worth it. You're basically paying to get your time back, and I recommend it to every single guest every single time. A lot of people also will ask me, is it still worth it if you're coming into the parks later in the afternoon? Say you want to spend your morning at the resort at the pool or go to the water park in the morning. And the answer to me is still yes, because you're going to get at least 3 attractions in the afternoon. You can stack them. Talk a little bit about that later, but you can stack them in the afternoon, and even 3 attractions. Let's say you save 30 to an hour, hour and a half on some of the bigger ones. That's a lot of time in your vacation that you're going to save from waiting in line. So Matt, wait. 3 attractions. What does all this mean? Let me break it down for you. When you pay for Multipass at Walt Disney World 7 days in advance of your vacation, you get to pick 3 rides from the park that you purchase it from, and you can schedule a 1-hour time period for you to come back and ride that ride on one of the days in your vacation. So let's say you pick Magic Kingdom. You get to pick 1 ride from what's called Tier 1, which has a list of rides that you can pick from that are the most popular rides. And then you've got 2 other rides you can pick from Tier 2. Those will automatically set times for you in the app, and you can come back and ride them during your 1-hour period that you get to ride. Let's say you want to buy Lightning Lane Multipass for the 2nd day of your vacation at Magic Kingdom. You're going to pick 3 rides, 1 from Tier 1, which will be the most popular rides, 2 from Tier 2, which will be the less popular attractions, and it will automatically set a time, a 1-hour time period, where you can come back on that day of your vacation and ride those rides. What happens next? When you go in and you ride Haunted Mansion, for example, or any of your 3 rides, the first one that you ride, you get to scan your Magic Band, and as soon as you scan in to ride that ride, you can pick another ride from any tier. You then go and ride your next rides on your schedule, and each time that you scan in to ride a ride, you get to book another one. So in theory, you should always have 3 rides available on Multipass. Eventually, they do sell out at the end of the day. They might not be available as 7 p.m. rolls around. There are very few rides available for Multipass, but the theory is that every time you scan into one, you get to ride another. There are some rides that are not included in Multipass, and those are called individual Lightning Lane attractions. At Magic Kingdom, a good example is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Tron Light Cycle Run. At Epcot, that would include Guardians of the Galaxy, for example. You can also get Rise of the Resistance at Hollywood Studios or Flight of Passage at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Individual Lightning Lanes are a separate cost for each person in your party to pay to skip the line for that ride specifically. They are not included when you buy Multipass. So at this point, we know we can buy Multipass, we can buy individual Lightning Lanes, we can buy a combination of two. So if you're going to Hollywood Studios, you can buy Multipass, and you can also buy an individual Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance. So then you're going to have a really good opportunity to skip a lot of lines for the popular attractions. And hey, if you want help building your ride and park day strategy or booking your dining reservations, your Multipass reservations, feel free to reach out to me. All of my services are completely free to you. The link to get a quote is going to be in the show notes, or you can always reach out to me via email, matt@adventuresofaDisneydad.com. And I would love to help you plan your next Universal, Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney World vacation. I'll help you plan a magical and stress-free vacation from start to finish, and I will do all of this stuff for you. The next available service that's a lot more expensive is called Premier Pass. It lets you get access to every single ride at one specific park. This includes the individual Lightning Lane attractions and the Multipass attractions, but you don't actually have to book a reservation to ride those rides like you do with Multipass. So for example, at Magic Kingdom, you may pay $449 per person, and you can walk up and ride each ride at Magic Kingdom one time throughout your day on your vacation. And that is, again, $449 as an example, because it does vary per person. So that doesn't just cover your entire party, that is per person. That's basically a VIP tour, but only limited to one park. You can pay for a VIP tour, which is also a lot more expensive for your entire group, but you get to ride whatever attractions you want. Sometimes you can ride them once or twice, and you can also go to all four parks. There's a lot more perks to a VIP tour, but that's not the purpose of this video. So now that we have a basic understanding of what Lightning Lane Multipass is, you can put Genie Plus out of your mind. It doesn't exist anymore. Sometimes people call it that. It's a similar system, but it doesn't exist anymore. FastPass used to be a system that lets you skip lines that was free. People complain about it all the time. So if you hear any old Disney veterans complaining about wanting FastPass back, that's what they mean. They want Multipass, but free. Now that we have a basic understanding of how Multipass works and all the different services that you can purchase, let's get into 7 of my favorite tips for using Lightning Lane Multipass. Number 1 is to know the tiers of attractions at each park before you go to book your reservations. So at 7 a.m., some of the most popular attractions are going to sell out very quickly. This is, again, 7 days before your vacation. You can book Multipass at 7 a.m. on the app. It's really important to go over in advance which rides you want to pick from each tier so that you can make sure that you're ready to select those rides as soon as it opens. You don't want to wait, because the times and the availability get worse after your booking window opens, because everybody else is trying to do it at the same time. So a great example is at Hollywood Studios, the most popular tier 1 attraction is Slinky Dog Dash. Typically, if you don't book it within the first day of your window opening, you're probably not going to get that ride at all, or you're going to get a very late time, like 8 p.m. The problem with getting a late time with Multipass is that it means that you're going to be scanning in later, so that you're not going to be able to use it for as many different rides. So for example, if I book right at 7 a.m. and you book right at 8 a.m., so you wait an hour after it opens, I'm able to get my ride return time, Slinky Dog Dash, at 9 a.m., and I can get 2 other rides, let's say at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Since you waited an hour later, maybe your first ride doesn't start until 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. That means that I'm scanning into my first ride at 9 a.m., and then I can immediately start booking another attraction. For you, since you didn't book your first one until like 11 a.m., that's your return time. You have to wait until 11 a.m. before you're going to be able to scan in and pick another ride. So you're already going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit. So it's important for you to look at each park for each park day that you're going to have during your vacation and try and narrow down which tier 1 attractions you want to pick and which tier 2 attractions you want to prioritize. And that goes into tip number 2, which is to prioritize what sells out fast. How do I know that? You can go to thrill-data.com. It's a very good tool that'll show you the actual availability for the next 21 days of individual and regular Multipass Lightning Lane attractions in the morning, afternoon, and evening. So that'll give you an idea, because you can see which rides are not available and which rides are available. You can see what other people are picking, right? Another good example is you can use social media. You can use our podcast or other videos. But I would also encourage you to make sure that you're prioritizing it based on what you want to do in your vacation. So for example, if you know that your kids really want to ride Tiana's Bayou Adventure, but Peter Pan's Flight is the ride that sells out fastest at Walt Disney World at Magic Kingdom, and your kids don't necessarily care about Peter Pan's Flight, then don't book it. Book Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Even though it's one that might be available after you scan into your first ride, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about this, to always prioritize what sells out first. Yes, you want to think about that, but always think about it in the context of your family and your vacation. Because ultimately you want to ride what you and your family and your kids want to ride, not necessarily what the internet thinks is the best. So if you want to ride Tiana's Bayou Adventure and that's your priority for you and your kids, pick it, ride it first. So keep that in mind. Tip number 3 is to also be aware of what does not sell out with Multipass quickly. A great example of this is Star Tours or different shows at different parks. For example, Frozen show or the Disney Junior Dance Party. Those all have lightning lanes available, but the lightning lanes are the last ones to sell out, and it's mostly because you don't even need them. You'll hear influencers on the internet talking about, I maximized Multipass because I rode 15 rides with Multipass in one day. That's really great, but the majority of those attractions that they're talking about riding are attractions that you don't actually need Multipass for. So it's not like they're riding the top tier attractions, the e-ticket attractions at every park on one day of Multipass. That's really not possible, and you have to manage your expectations that way. You're not going to be able to ride, for example, Slinky Dog Dash at Hollywood Studios, then go and ride Frozen and Remy's at Epcot, and then go to Magic Kingdom and ride Peter Pan. Like, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. So what's the best way for you to keep in mind what rides you should not prioritize? Get yourself familiar with the app. You can always look and see what lightning lanes are available each day. You'll see the return times in the My Disney Experience app. If you look at 4 p.m. and there are still return times available, that means that those rides are a little bit less popular. Again, you can use tools like Thrill Data, but you can also kind of judge it with your eyes. Anytime you're looking at the app, the rides that are going to sell out the fastest are going to have the later return times in the day. So Slinky Dog Dash, if let's say you got lucky and you booked Slinky Dog Dash first, you scan in and you want to ride Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway has a return time of 7 p.m. Tower of Terror has a return time of 3 p.m. It means Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is going to sell out a lot faster than Tower of Terror typically. So you'll want to make sure you pick that one first if that's what you want to ride. The next tip is to combine Multipass with the standby line strategy, rope drop strategy in a smart way. Multipass is not a strategy in and of itself. You really have to think about where you're staying at your resort, what time you're going to arrive to the park, and what you want your schedule to be for your park day. So a great example is if I want to spend my morning at the pool with my kids, then I definitely want to use Multipass. I want to book some early afternoon rides, and I want to think through my strategy of, am I going to prioritize the most popular rides? Am I going to buy extra individual lightning lanes for Rise of the Resistance, or if I'm going to Magic Kingdom for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Tron? So then I could have 3 Multipass rides in the afternoon, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Tron. Then we're going to have a parade, the fireworks, maybe a character meet. And that's a really jam-packed afternoon and evening, especially if you're spending your morning at the pool. The opposite of that is true. If you know you're going to rope drop, you want to make sure that you're thinking through your rope drop strategy as to how you're going to prioritize your individual lightning lanes or your Multipass. So at Magic Kingdom, for example, if you're going to rope drop Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or you're going to rope drop Tron, one thing to keep in mind, and we're doing a How to Ride series that you should check out on our YouTube channel, and Tron will be up soon. Tron is not open during early entry. So it does not actually start running until regular park hours. So you're wasting your rope drop time if you're going to go prioritize Tron. That's a story for a different day. Let's say you want to rope drop Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or you want to rope drop Peter Pan's Flight. You don't want to pick Peter Pan's Flight first if that's going to be your strategy. Similarly, you don't want to necessarily buy individual lightning lane for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train if you know that you might want to rope drop it. It's a way for you to save some money on your vacation. You could save $20 per person if you rope drop Seven Dwarfs Mine Train instead of Tron or Peter Pan's Flight. So maybe you pick Peter Pan's Flight as your tier 1, and instead of buying an individual lightning lane, you go and you rope drop Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So you always want to think about your entire day's strategy, what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, how much money that you're willing to spend and put into your budget, and then make sure you're building your Multipass strategy around those things. One of the greatest parts about Multipass is you don't book it until 7 days before your vacation starts. So at that point, you've booked all of your Enchanting Extras experiences, your Bibbidi Boppity Boutique. You've booked your dining reservations. So you've got a lot of your schedule and your framework for your vacation, so to speak, is already planned out a little bit. And now you're just building out your specific park day. The next tip is to consider park hopper. So one of the best parts about Multipass is that you buy it for the park that you're entering first on that day. So for example, if you purchase Park Hopper, which is an extra fee for your vacation and gives you the ability to go to multiple parks in the same day, you can go to Animal Kingdom first, which is a lot more affordable, book your first 3 rides at Animal Kingdom, and then you can park hop to Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, or Epcot in the afternoon/evening. Once you start scanning into your rides at Animal Kingdom, say the first ride you ride is Everest right at 9 a.m., you scan in, you can then start booking your attractions at a different park. So you can start booking Magic Kingdom rides and stack them for the afternoon. Stacking means that you're just putting them all in a short time frame in the afternoon or evening. And you can start to build out your strategy that way. You can run around rope drop Animal Kingdom at a lower price point for your multipass, saving you a little bit of money, getting a bunch of attractions done, knock them out, and you can also book your rides at Magic Kingdom for later in the afternoon. So make sure that you're considering whether or not you want to buy Park Hopper, first of all, but second of all, how you're going to build your park day out if you're going to use Lightning Lanes and Multipass with your Park Hopper strategy. One of the next tips is to make sure that you keep in mind character meets do not include Lightning Lane anymore. You cannot skip the line for any character meets at Walt Disney World anymore. They used to be available for Lightning Lane. They are not anymore. So if you want to do meet Anna and Elsa, you're still going to have to wait in line. And you need to keep that in mind when you're building out your strategy and booking your different times, because it can make it so that you're spending a bulk of your day in line for character meet and greets. A more advanced tip is to make sure that you use the modify button and not the cancel button when you're using the My Disney Experience app. So let me explain this. Once you book your 3 rides, or you're in the middle of your park day and you've already got some rides booked, and you have a dining reservation that you're running up on and you're running a little late, you don't think you're going to be able to make one of your multipass reservations, or you just want to change the ride. A lot of people unfortunately go in and they cancel the ride and then they try and rebook a different ride or the same ride for a different time. You don't actually have to do that. There's a modify button underneath the ride on the My Disney Experience app that you can click, and you can change the time for your current selection. So if you currently have a 3 p.m. in the afternoon selection and a 7 o'clock selection is available, you can just modify and switch it. The same goes for earlier in the day. Say that you 7 days in advance, the earliest time you're able to get for Slinky Dog Dash is 7 p.m. Occasionally, you can keep an eye on the app and you can check and see if there's a modification available to get an earlier time. So that can help you have more ride availability for your multipass. And it's something you have to keep in mind and like keep an eye on, which I really don't like. I don't like spending a whole lot of time on my phone during my vacation, but it is a good tool for you to be able to use. And you really need to know how to do it in case something comes up where you're on the Skyliner or your kids are still napping longer and you're not going to make your Lightning Lane. You do get a grace period of like 15 minutes before the cast members can technically tell you that you're not allowed to ride anymore. Usually that's pretty flexible. But if you want to switch it and change your ride, or another one became available and you want to swap them, you can always do that with the modify button. You don't have to hit the cancel button. One of the last tips I want to give is to be mindful of shows, parades, and fireworks or end of the night shows. They are not included in Lightning Lane Multipass. And now, especially as we move into the end of the year, the parties are going to be a big factor. Also, you have to watch the park hours. For example, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. Magic Kingdom closes earlier. So that can have an impact on your strategy for using Multipass and how much you're going to get out of it. If the last ride that you can book is at 6 p.m. because there's a party that's closing Magic Kingdom, you're going to get less value out of your multipass if you only have a ticket to Magic Kingdom that day, for example. But because of Starlight, the new nighttime parade that's coming to Magic Kingdom, it kind of gives a renewed focus on making sure you build your multipass strategy around all of the other things that you want to do. So for example, if you have multipass and you've got one character meet that you want to do, let's say Anna and Elsa, that's going to take 45 minutes to an hour of your day, You've got one table service meal that you can conservatively say is going to take an hour. And then you have Starlight, which is going to take about an hour once you talk about getting your seat and watching the parade. And then you have Happily Ever After, which could be an hour, hour and a half, depending on what time you get your seat. That's 5 hours worth of shows and non-multipass attractions or events that you're going to be doing during your park day. Building your multipass strategy around those things is going to be really, really important. And it goes back to using that modify cancel button, because you want to make sure that you know how to do it and move things around to build around your schedule as you're going throughout your day. But this goes back to helping to manage your expectations for your Disney vacation, because you want to make sure that you're keeping in mind multipass is really only going to get you 5 really good attractions, I would say, on a good day. And the reality is that, like, a lot of times that's all you have time for. You're not going to necessarily be able to get 8, 9, 10 attractions done on multipass unless you're really just moving around with your family as quickly as you possibly can. The last concept I want to talk about, and this is more of an advanced bonus tip, is the concept of a burner ride. A burner ride you might hear about on social media or read about in a blog is when you pick a ride that you don't necessarily care for, but it has a return time of like 9 a.m. first thing in the morning. Sometimes people will do that, and it's a good strategy because you're booking a tier 2 throwaway attraction. Let's say you're booking multipass at Magic Kingdom and you want to book 2 tier 1 attractions as quickly as possible. Your kids really want to ride Peter Pan's Flight and they really want to ride Tiana's Bio Adventure. You can only pick one at first, so you pick Peter Pan's Flight. The second ride that you may pick isn't available until 11 a.m. or 3 in the afternoon, and you really need to get something early in the morning so that you can immediately pick Tiana's Bio Adventure. Sometimes people will book something like the Barnstormer that's going to be open immediately at 9 a.m. They may go and ride it, or they may just go and scan in and walk away because they immediately want to be able to book Tiana's Bio Adventure. Sometimes that strategy works. A good example is at Epcot. If you really want to ride both Frozen and Remy's, it is really hard to get both with multipass. Typically, my strategy is to tell someone to rope drop one, book the other with multipass. But if you want to have your best shot to try and get both, you might book Journey into Imagination with Figment at 9 a.m. as one of your tier 2s, and then you book Frozen as your tier 1. You go immediately to Journey into Imagination with Figment. You scan in, even if you don't care to actually ride that ride. It's a fun ride, by the way. But then you can immediately try and book Remy's Ratatouille Adventure right at 9 a.m. because you had that, quote, burner attraction. The downside with picking burner rides is that you're really wasting one of your pre-vacation attractions, and you're not going to necessarily get the full value of your multipass. Usually there's a better strategy. There's a better ride selection that you can have, and getting a little bit later start to your day. Say your first attraction is at 11 a.m. instead of using a burner ride at 9 a.m. Usually you want to prioritize the rides that you want, even if it means the return times are a little bit later. Don't overthink it. I know that I gave you the tip, and I know that I explained how burner rides work, but it's really important for you to try and remember to not overthink Lightning Lane Multipass. Do what's best for you and your family on your vacation. That should be the number one priority. If your kids really, really want to ride Star Tours or the Barnstormer, like, don't be afraid to use a Lightning Lane Multipass and save yourself 10 or 15 minutes, because those rides do occasionally have a wait time. So there you have it. There's some intro tips to Lightning Lane Multipass to help you plan your Disney vacation like a pro. Obviously, there's way, way, way more detail and tricks and strategies that we can go into. We talk about them on the website, on the podcast, and on other videos on this channel. If you found this video helpful, share it with one of your friends that's planning a Disney vacation. We obviously appreciate the support. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube at home, and we will see you on our next video, or we'll see you in the parks.